Hi guys. Okay, I've been trying to think of the best way to help people who failed the test to get the answers corrected, because that's what is required before you retake the test. There will be a lot of people coming in the next few days, so the best way that I can think of to ensure that everybody at least gets a chance to see how the problems should have been worked out was to do this video. So here are your instructions. With your test, I want you to go to the questions that you missed. You'll see them as you scroll through the video. You don't have to watch the whole video. If you got some of the problems correct, then skip those ones. But you can move through the video and stop at the problems that you got wrong and see how to work them out. What I am going to ask is that you use some different color than what you took the test in. So if you did it in pencil, please use a colored pen or a colored pencil or a marker or something to do your corrections. So when you're done, you can show me that you corrected them, and then you can try the parallel test. As you are watching the corrections, please try to figure out what you did wrong. That is what I will ask. All right, so we're screencasting. We'll see how this goes. I have a cat meowing in the background. I don't know if you can hear that. Hopefully my dogs will not run through and scare the crap out of everybody. So for number one, we have this equation, all right, and we are trying to solve it. So all they're asking you is what you would have done first to solve it. You have 18 minus x over 2 equals 20. Okay, so here's the deal. This x needs to stay where it's at. That's supposed to be an arrow. That x is supposed to stay where it's at. So the first thing I want to move are my constant terms. The 18 is constant, so I am going to subtract 18 from both sides. So the answer is B. You did not have to solve it. You just had to know what was the first thing to do. For the next thing, what property would you use to first solve for x in the equation? You are going to distribute. That would be 5x plus 20 equals 30. And you did not have to go any further. You just had to know that distributive property was the first thing that you would use. Okay, next, isolate the variable y in the equation. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and draw an arrow. The y is what needs to stay, meaning everything else goes to the other side. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 4x. Okay, I know you can hear my cat. She's right next to me meowing. She says hello, by the way. Okay, so we then have 8y equals 32 minus 4x. Okay, and I still want the y by itself, so the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by 8. This whole thing divides by 8, and you had to show your work on this. So this would have been y equals 32 divided by 8 minus 4x divided by 8. This simplifies one more time, and your final answer would have been y equals 4 minus 1/2 x. Okay, and so that would have been letter A. For number 4, you had to solve for B1. So I am going to put an arrow over B1. That is what doesn't move. Here's the deal, guys. If you did the 1.5 note taking with vocab on the back, this problem was worked out exactly. So all you had to do was make sure you were paying attention in class, and you have this problem. So guys, I do that quite often, so it's one of the incentives that I use to get you to make sure you're doing the work in class and paying attention. Most people remembered that, figured it out, found it, and got this right. So what you would have to do is, let's see, A equals 1/2 times H, and then this is distributive, but we're actually not going to distribute. Okay, let me erase this tiny little spot. I don't even know why it's there. I don't want to confuse you. Okay, we need to get the B1 all by itself. That is what stays. So let's move the 1/2. Okay, this is division 1 divided by 2. So the inverse of that would be to multiply times 2 on both sides. So then we have 2a equals, and these cancel, h times b1 plus b2. Okay, the next thing is this is multiplication between the h and the set in the parentheses, b1 plus b2. So the inverse of multiplication is division. We're going to divide both sides by h. Okay, this ends up being 2a divided by h equals, okay, and these cancel. And I end up with b1 plus b2. At this point, I can actually get rid of the parentheses because I don't need them anymore. There's nothing to distribute once I got rid of that h. So our very last step would be to subtract, oops, that's still in erase mode, subtract b2 from both sides. Okay, and so you would end up here with b1 equals, you can write this a couple different ways. I'm going to say 2a over h minus b2. Okay, so this would have been letter D. Okay, all right, let's go to the next problem. Write and solve an equation to find the number 15 less than twice the number is 23. When I see is, I write the equal sign, and whatever follows it immediately is the number behind the equal sign. So this part is done, and I cross it off. Okay, the next thing that I need to do is I need to say 15 less than, well, that translates into something minus 15. Okay, sounds a little weird, but that's how that works. And then we have twice a number, so that's going to be 2x. Okay, so we need to write and solve the equation. So here we go. We're going to move our constant term first, plus 15, plus 15. Okay, these cancel, and I end up getting 2x equals negative 8. Divide by 2, divide by 2. So x equals negative 4, or n, I'm sorry, it's an n. That should have been an n, that variable, the whole time. N. All right, so don't let that confuse you. Number 6. You did not have to do number 6, so I'm not going to waste your time. And let's go to the next one. Okay, this is one that I tried to hit really, really hard. You did not even have to actually solve these. You just had to recognize the pattern. So look at number 7. If I were to distribute and distribute, I get 5x plus 5 equals 5x plus 5. This is exactly the same thing on both sides. This has another word. This is called the identity property. Okay, and if we decided to subtract 5x from both sides, I'm not going to do, well, I guess I'll do it. Here we go. This would be, let's do 5x plus 5x equals, oops, sorry, 5x plus 5 equals 5x plus 5. Watch what happens if we subtract 5x. We end up getting 5 equals 5, which is always true. I was hoping that you would recognize that and see that in that case, we have infinitely many solutions, infinitely many, because everything satisfies it. Let's look at number 8. Okay, if we subtracted 5x from both sides, cancel, cancel, we get 3 equals negative 11. That does not work, or that is not true. Okay, therefore, we have no solutions. Okay, and that would end up being letter A. Okay, what I was hoping you would recognize, and I'm going to erase this for just a moment, I was hoping that you would recognize that the pattern here, okay, instead of being the identity where everything is exactly the same, this is almost the same. But our variables still cancel out. Okay, number 9. This is just a plain old linear equation. I'm going to subtract 2, subtract 2. I get 16x equals 32. X equals 2. Right? And that is just one solution. You did not even have to solve it. Hopefully you just recognize that's just a plain old linear equation. So that is one solution. And finally, by the way, process of elimination, the only thing left is letter C. two solutions, and I was hoping that you would remember one equation becomes two. One equation becomes, that's supposed to be a C, becomes 2. Remember, 5x plus 6 equals 36, or 5x plus 6 equals negative 36. And you solve, and you solve, and you get two different things, x equals or x equals. All right, so this is two solutions. You didn't even have to solve it, you just had to recognize that there were two of them. This became a problem a little later in the test when you had to actually solve something. People didn't remember, a lot of people, that there were two solutions. All right, next one. This was the last one on the second page, and people really struggled with this. So what is the solution? Well, we cannot, here's the problem, I'm going to rewrite it. This is 2x plus 7 equals 15. We cannot decide anything about this until we get rid of this negative 3, okay? Because the absolute value sign has to be isolated. Okay, so we are going to divide both sides by negative 3. And when we do, okay, this cancels, and we end up with absolute value. 2x plus 7 equals negative 5. Here is what I was hoping that you guys would recognize, and a lot of you did. This is a negative. Can an absolute value be a negative? No. So there is no solution to this. And what you would have had to say in a sentence, okay, is absolute value can't be negative, therefore there's no solution. So I did need at least one sentence there. Next problem. Find the angle measures of the polygon, okay, and it gave you the hint right here, the sum, so we're adding things, of all the angles in the polygon equals 180. All right, so a lot of you did really, really well on this. At least you got equals 180. I saw a lot of that. All you had to do, okay, is you just had to add up all these different parts. Okay, and the sad thing was a lot of people had trouble doing that, which that's something that we should be a little better at. So there's 1, there's this guy, we're done. Okay, plus 30, there's that guy, we're done. Plus 9x, and all of that equals 180. Okay, we do not have to distribute. A whole bunch of people tried to multiply here and distribute. Okay, that's not what we're doing, we're just adding. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to combine my like terms. I'm going to use magic pen here because it's going to disappear. I have some constant terms, 30 and a 30. Okay, so those are like terms, and what I can do with them is I can combine them and get, oops, not what I want. Let's erase that. Sorry guys, and thank you for being patient. I'm going to get 60. Okay, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to combine my other like terms, and these are my variable terms instead, and I'm going to get plus 10x equals 180. Okay, there were a lot of mistakes between these first two lines. Okay, I'm going to move my constants, minus 60, minus 60. This becomes 10x equals 120, and finally divide by 10, so x equals 12. This goes right here, x equals 12. Okay, now that wasn't the only thing we were asked to do. We also needed to find the 30 plus x. So all I have to do is say 30 plus 12 equals 42. So this was 42. I was very pleased. About half the class got that right. Number 13, 3/4 k equals negative 1. I'm sorry, equals negative 12. Okay, so this was one of those, and we practiced this. I was hoping people would use their notes. If we have a fraction here, 3 divided by 4, okay, or a fraction, we want to multiply by the reciprocal of that fraction on both sides. So this is going to be times 4/3 on both sides. Okay, cool thing is here, this cancels and cancels, cancels and cancels. That's the whole purpose, is to get all of that to cancel. So K equals, now I have negative 12 times a 4 is a negative 48. Okay, and then divided by 1 times 3, which is 3. So K equals negative 16. A bunch of you got that right, which was awesome. Right here, we are going to subtract 11, subtract 11. Okay, I get negative 6x equals 42. Okay, and now I divide by negative 6, divide by negative 6, so x equals negative 7. A whole bunch of people said positive 7. I'm not sure what happened to the negative sign, but I gave it to you guys. Okay, now here there were people who said no solution. Don't write this, don't write this. Okay, they said no solution because that is negative, but you cannot make that decision until you get rid of that negative 5. So I am going to erase all of this right here because that is not correct. Okay, and what you had to do is divide by negative 5, divide by negative 5. Once you do that, these cancel, and you end up with the absolute value all by itself. When we have a negative divided by a negative, that becomes a positive. This is solvable. So one equation becomes 2. This is where a lot of people only got one part of it. We have d minus 6 equals 5, or d minus 6 equals negative 5. We solve each one. So this is plus 6, d equals 11. This is plus 6, so d equals 1. Now there are not variables on both sides. There's only a variable on one side. Okay, so we do not actually have to check these solutions. That would be a good idea to check them to make sure our math is right, but in this case we had 2 solutions and they both worked. Next problem, the window pane problem. All right, for this, you did not necessarily need to write this whole mess in the box. You could just say C, oops, still in eraser mode, C above. Those of you who did write it, good for you. Let's draw a picture here. During the summer, you work 25 hours per week at a gas station. So I'm going to draw a little box here. This is 25, okay, hours per week, and you earn $10 an hour. You also is a keyword, work as a landscaper for $12 an hour. You do not know how many hours that you're able to work there, so that is your variable, hours. But you make $12 an hour each time. All of that, okay, earns you $334 per week. So how many hours did you work as a landscaper? Well, here's where I do a little bit of critical reading. Here is my noun that is mentioned the most. Remember our lesson, noun that is mentioned the most. So my variable is going to be H equals hours. I'm going to use this diagram to set up my equation. This is going to be 25 times 10 plus 12 times H equals 334. Now I'm just going to solve it below. 250 plus 12H equals 334. I'm going to subtract 250 from both sides. Okay, this cancels. I get 12H equals, sorry, 84, so H equals 7. You need to work 7 hours. And that's what you needed for that problem. A whole bunch of people got it right, and that was awesome to see. Okay, the last couple problems. This one, you had to choose from all these terms here, right? In this very first line, what you're doing is you're saying, well, what happened between here and here? What they did is they distributed. So this would have been distributive, and that was letter H. I checked both. Okay, so if you had distributive or G, you got that right. Next thing is from here to here. What happened? In that case, what they did is they subtracted the 2x. So this would have been subtraction, property of equality, and that would have been H. Okay. The next thing from here to here, what did they do? They added the 6, addition, property of equality, and that was a B. And finally, the very last thing from here to here, okay, they divided. So that was division, property of equality, and that would have been letter J. There really was no other alternative in this problem. It really had to be that order. Now what I did is each of these was worth, the way I graded this was if you missed 2 of them, that was -1/2. The whole thing was worth 1. So if you missed 2 of them, you got -1/2. If you missed 3 of them, I just took the whole point off because to me that means you really didn't get the problem in general. Last problem. Come on, it's not moving. Okay. What happened between here and here? They distributed twice. Distributed, distributive, and so that would have been G. That is the only thing that could have been there. What happened between here and here? Okay, now it looks like what they did is they just combined like terms, or you could have said that this is simplify. So I would have taken simplify or associative or combine like terms. So the letters that would have been okay here would have been F, C, or A. All right, any of those would have been fine, and I gave you credit for it. What happened between here and here? Okay, it looks like they subtracted the 2V, so this would have been subtraction. Okay, and that would have been letter H. That is the only thing that could have been, no other options. Here to here, they added the 10, so this is addition, property of equality, and that would have been letter B. And finally, from here to here, they divided, division, property of equality, that would have been J. No other options. Okay, you have your test corrections. If you missed these, I need you to show that you fixed them on your paper, again with a different color. What I would like you to do is any of these that you still had trouble with, I want you to ask me about, and we will work through them together before you do the retake. Thank you for watching.